The heavy silence of the first-class cabin at 30,000 feet was shattered by a sound that felt like tearing silk. It was a scream, jagged and high-pitched, vibrating with a specific type of entitlement that only comes from a lifetime of never being told no. Eleanor Sterling stood in the aisle, her face a mask of porcelain rage. She was 60, with hair the color of expensive smoke and eyes that scanned the world like a debt collector. On the seat beside her, where moments ago a custom-made platinum-gray designer bag had sat, there was now only an empty expanse of leather. That bag is worth more than your entire life. She shrieked, her finger pointed like a bayonet at the man sitting 2 rows behind her. Julian Vane did not flinch. He sat in seat 4A, a man of quiet, commanding presence with skin the color of deep mahogany, and a bespoke suit that fit him with the precision of a blueprint. He had been reading a technical journal on urban infrastructure, his glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. He looked up, his expression one of profound, weary calm. "I beg your pardon." Julian said, his voice a smooth, resonant baritone. "Don't you dare play the intellectual with me." Eleanor hissed, her voice dropping to a dangerous vibrating low. "I saw you eyeing it when we boarded at JFK. You bumped my seat on purpose. I go to the lavatory for 10 minutes, and now it's gone and your weekend bag looks suspiciously full." The flight attendant, a woman named Sarah, rushed forward, her hands raised in a placating gesture. "Mrs. Sterling, please. We are over the Atlantic. Let's stay calm." "Calm," Eleanor laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. "That bag contains my passport, my jewelry, and my private medical records. It is a one-of-a-kind piece, and he has it. Search him. Search that bag right now." Julian slowly removed his glasses. "Ma'am, I have not moved from this seat except to use the restroom at the rear of the cabin. I have no interest in your property, liar." Eleanor turned to the man sitting across from her in 2A, Arthur. "You saw him, didn't you? You saw him lurking." Arthur Penhaligon, a man in his late 50s with the rugged, fading charm of a retired actor, adjusted his linen jacket. He had spent the last 2 hours flirting with Eleanor, sharing stories of his villa in Marbella and his stable of racehorse. He looked at Julian with a patronizing tilt of his head. "I did see our friend here moving about quite a bit, Eleanor," Arthur said smoothly. "And his bag does look rather cramped for a short trip to London." "See," Eleanor barked at Sarah. "Open it now, I will not." Julian stated, his eyes locking onto Eleanor's with an intensity that made the air in the cabin feel suddenly thin. "I have rights, and I will not be subjected to a search based on your prejudices. You don't get to violate my privacy because you've misplaced your vanity prejudice." Eleanor recoiled as if slapped. "This is about theft. You people always play that card." A collective gasp rippled through the first-class cabin. The tech CEO in 3B began recording with his phone. The elderly couple in 1F looked away, embarrassed by the naked ugliness of the comment. "Mrs. Sterling," Sarah said, her voice turning cold, "sit down now. I will inform the captain, and the authorities will meet us at Heathrow. No one will be searched until we are on the ground." Eleanor sank into her seat, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She glared at the back of Julian's head. For the remaining 5 hours of the flight, she felt a toxic mix of panic and triumph. She needed that bag back. She didn't just need it because it was expensive. She needed it because sewn into the lining were 300 carats of uncut diamonds. Her husband's jewelry empire was crumbling under the weight of debt, and this was their last-ditch effort to move assets out of the U.S. before the auditors arrived. Off to an accomplice as long as she got off to an accomplice. As long as she got the bag back before a deep search was conducted, she was safe. As the plane touched down on the rain-slicked tarmac of Heathrow, the blue and red lights of the Metropolitan flickered against the windows. The captain announced that everyone was to remain seated. 3 officers boarded LED by a sharp-eyed man named Detective Miller. Eleanor said, standing up before the plane had even finished taxing Julian Vane. He took it. Detective Miller looked at Julian, then at Eleanor. He was a man who had spent 20 years reading people, and something about Eleanor's desperation didn't sit right with him. "Sir, please step into the galley with your luggage," Miller said to Julian. Julian complied with a dignified nod. He unzipped his black leather weekender in full view of the cabin. Out came a laptop, architectural blueprints, a toiletry kit, and a change of clothes. He even pulled out the lining. The bag was empty. "What?" Eleanor gasped, stepping forward. "He must have hidden it. Check the bins. Check the floor." The officers searched the immediate area. They checked the overhead bins, the gaps between the seats and the lavatories. "Nothing, Mrs. Sterling," Detective Miller said, his voice dropping. "Are you absolutely certain you brought the bag on board?" "I'm Eleanor Sterling. I don't misplace $80,000 items." Detective Sarah, the flight attendant, intervened. "You might want to check the crew storage bin above row 2. I noticed Mr. Penhaligon standing near it while Sterling was in the restroom, which is unusual for a passenger." Arthur Penhaligon's charming smile vanished. His face turned a sickly shade of gray. "I was merely stretching my legs," he said, his voice losing its buttery texture. The officer reached into the bin, moved a stack of blankets, and pulled out a platinum gray bag. "That's it," Eleanor cried, lunging for it. "Give it to me." "Wait," Miller said, holding it out of reach. "Mr. Penhaligon, why was this in a crew bin?" "I have no idea," Arthur said, shrugging. Perhaps the thief got spooked and ditched it. Miller looked at the bag, then at Eleanor, who was shaking with a fervor that went beyond mere relief. He felt the weight of the bag. It was too heavy for its size. He ran his fingers along the bottom and felt a unnatural lump. I need to verify the contents. Miller said no. You have no right, Eleanor screamed. Miller ignored her. He took a small blade and slit the internal lining. A stream of raw, milky stones spilled out onto the floor, clicking against the metal like hail. The silence that followed was absolute. Well, Julian Vane said softly from the galley, that is a very interesting architectural choice for a handbag. Eleanor Sterling Miller said, his voice like iron. You are under arrest for suspicion of smuggling and customs evasion. And Mr. Penhaligon, you're coming with us for attempted theft and conspiracy. I don't believe in coincidences, and I certainly don't believe a gentleman accidentally stashes someone else's bag in a restricted bin. As the handcuffs clicked shut around Eleanor's wrists, she looked at Arthur. He wasn't looking at her with sympathy. He was looking at her with pure, unadulterated contempt, you idiot. Arthur hissed as they were LED away. If you hadn't been such a loud racist screech, I could have walked off with the stones, and you would have just thought the bag was gone. You called the police on yourself? The parade of humiliation continued through the terminal. Eleanor, disheveled and weeping, was filmed by dozens of passengers. The video of her earlier outburst had already gone viral. That she was a diamond smuggler sent the internet into a frenzy. While Eleanor was being processed in a fluorescent-lit cell at Heathrow, Julian Vane was finishing his statement. I'm sorry for the trouble, Mr. Vane Miller said. It's clear she used you as a lightning rod for her own guilt. She thought your skin color made you an easy target. To deflect suspicion bias is a structural flaw, Detective Julian replied, if you build your life on it. Eventually the whole house falls down, but the karma was not finished. 3 days later, Julian Vane sat in a sunlit office in London. He had just won a civil judgment against the Sterling estate for defamation and emotional distress, because Eleanor's husband, Richard, had been arrested by the FBI in Manhattan. The same day she was caught in London, their assets were being seized. However, Julian's lawyers had moved with lightning speed to secure a $5 million settlement from Eleanor's personal inheritance, the one thing the government hadn't touched yet. Julian didn't keep a penny. He appeared on a major news network that evening. I'm announcing the creation of the Vane Foundation. He told the cameras the $5 million awarded from the Sterling estate will be used to provide full scholarships for underprivileged students to study architecture and civil engineering. We will build things that last, funded by the very person who tried to tear a man down. In her prison cell, Eleanor watched the broadcast on a small, flickering television. She saw the man she had called a thief being hailed as a visionary. She saw her family name being scrubbed from buildings in New York. She saw her husband's face in a mugshot next to hers. She had lost her freedom, her fortune, and her reputation. Every cent of her father's legacy was now being spent to educate people who looked exactly like the man she had tried to destroy. Julian Vane, meanwhile, was back at 30,000 feet flying to a project in Dubai. He sat in first class sipping a glass of water. Watching the horizon, he knew that the world was often unfair, but every now and then, the architecture of the universe aligned perfectly. The bag had been worth a lot, but Eleanor was right about one thing. It had cost her everything. Julian looked out at the clouds, finally at peace, knowing that while some people travel with diamonds, the only thing worth carrying was a clear conscience.